When you look at Chioma, you see a beautiful young girl with grace that the village adored with prideful joy. She was the light in the dark. It was thought that it was a taboo to hurt Chioma. But what happened to the entire village when someone, the least expected person in her life, chose to harm Chioma? Sold and enslaved her to the men of the underworld, deep in the evil forest. But why did the evil forest reject Chioma, after just one night? Stay with me and relish this exciting and emotional story of Chioma, the delight of the hearts of men and women of the village of Umuchukwu. The cry did not belong to grief alone. It carried something darker, something sharp, desperate, almost rehearsed. It pierced through the stillness of dawn in Umuchukwu village, sending goats scattering and pulling villagers from their huts like an unseen alarm had been sounded. Under the great aqua tree in the center of the compound, Chioma's stepmother writhed on the bare earth, her wrapper loosened, her hair undone, her voice cracked from relentless screaming. She beat her chest violently. Dust clung to her skin. Her tears fell, but her eyes searched. Watching. Measuring. Calculating. She has killed her, she screamed hoarsely. That woman has killed my daughter. Her finger shot toward Chioma's mother. The world seemed to freeze. The murmuring began instantly. Whispers. Sharp, dangerous whispers. Chioma's mother stood at the edge of the gathering crowd, her wrapper tightly secured, her face pale, her lips trembling, but no words came out. She looked not angry. Not defensive. Just broken. Chioma was not just beautiful. Beauty fades into familiarity, but Chioma never did. Her skin glowed like early sunlight on river water. Her smile carried warmth soothing that disarmed even the coldest hearts. But it was her spirit that made her unforgettable. She greeted elders with both knees bent low in humble regards. She shared her food even when she had little, but she never lacked. She spoke gently, even when provoked, but who would ever want to hurt or provoke Chioma, the delight of all? Some said she was too soft for this world, and some welcomed her as the presence of an angel in their midst. Others simply said that she carried the spirit of a blessed child. She was the second daughter of her father, a respected man in Umuchukwu, and without question, his favorite. But favoritism is a seed that often grows into jealousy, and consequently, calamity. Her father had two wives. Chioma's mother, quiet, patient, enduring. Her stepmother, young, lively, charming, and unpredictable. To strangers, they looked like sisters. They walked together, laughed together in public, even fetched water side by side. But inside the walls of the compound, words were sharper, silences were heavier, and glances carried meaning no outsider could understand. Still, Chioma moved freely between them, loving both, trusting both, blind to the storm growing beneath her feet. It was 3 days before her disappearance. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the path that led to the stream. Chioma balanced a clay pot on her head, humming softly, her steps light. That was when Mama Chudi appeared. No one ever saw where she came from. She simply was. A woman of middle age, wrapped in faded cloth, her eyes deep with knowing. People respected her, feared her, avoided her. But Chioma? Chioma greeted her with warmth. Mama Chudi, good evening. The old woman studied her for a long moment. Too long. Then she spoke. When the goat smiles at the butcher, it does not know the knife is already sharpened. Chioma blinked, confused. I don't understand, Mama. Mama Chudi stepped closer, lowered her voice. Be careful of the one who laughs with you the most. Chioma laughed lightly. Mama, nobody wants to hurt me. Mama Chitty's expression did not change. That is what makes you easy to hurt. But Chioma did not listen. The afternoon was ordinary. Too ordinary. Chioma had finished sweeping the compound. She spoke briefly with her stepmother, who smiled warmly and asked her to fetch something from the back of the farm. That was the last time anyone saw her. No scream. No struggle. No witness. Just silence. At first, they thought she had gone to visit a friend. Then the sun began to fall. Then panic began to rise. By nightfall, the entire compound was in chaos. Men gathered with lanterns. Women whispered prayers. Children were pulled indoors. The forest loomed at the edge of the village like a watching giant. Search parties returned empty. Again. And again. And again. But one person did not search. She cried. Loudly. Relentlessly. Violently. Chioma's stepmother. Her grief filled the air so heavily that it drowned out reason. And then, she spoke. Her mother did this. The words fell like poison. And the village began to believe. Chioma's mother tried to speak in self-defense, but she was already broken by the loss of her beloved daughter, Chioma. She was yet to come to terms with that idea, while struggling to deny the accusation that was leveled against her. She tried to say something, but grief tied her tongue, and she felt bad. Because her inability to clear her name was already seeming like an admittance of guilt. Shock weakened her voice. And accusation crushed her spirit. The more she stayed silent, the more guilty she seemed. And deep down, she knew something was wrong. Not just with the accusation, but with the way Chioma's stepmother cried. It was too perfect. Too loud. Too convincing. And she couldn't help but wondered if she was the only person that was noticing these loopholes. Deep in the forbidden forest, Chioma sat on cold earth. Even her captors just stood quietly and watched her as if waiting for something or scared of something. Her body trembled in fear with irritation, as insects and rodents roam about the ground in the stillness of the night. Her mind struggled to understand what was going on. The men around her were not fully human. Even if they were fully covered, their eyes burned dimly. When they eventually spoke, their voices echoed unnaturally and obviously couldn't be spirits. As if reading her mind, and in answer to what she was thinking, their leader spoke words that shattered her soul. You were sold to us. Chioma's breath caught, and she muttered, by who, in a whisper that had a shadow of her own voice. The answer came slowly, and coldly. The one you trusted. And in that moment, Chioma's world broke into fragments of deeper confusion because she trusted everyone. Suddenly, she remembered the warning from Mama Chitty. Mama Chitty had known. Not guessed. Not suspected. Known. What she had warned her about was obviously true. And now, the moment Chioma remembered Mama Chitty, her spirit instantly connected with Mam Chitty. The seer immediately saw what was going on. She had seen it in the shadows, and heard it in the silence of her being. She immediately felt it in the wind. And when Chioma did not return, she did not panic. She acted. Not dutifully, but because of the kindness and generosity of the spirit of Chioma. The forest did not really welcome her. But it did not stop her either. Because Mama Chitty walked with a higher authority. The spirits shifted and powers bowed to higher powers. The air thickened with discomfort within the men of the underworld. The ground seemed to remember her, and her conquest of the past. When she reached them, they smiled. But their smiles was not for long. You owe me, she said. Silence arrested the entire vicinity. Heavy. Painful silence. They remembered her past and capabilities and chose not to act rashly. And they feared her presence and wondered her connection with Chioma. As she moved one step closer, their leader retreated with 2 steps. Back in the village, arguments filled the air. Confusion reigned among the village because every volunteer had what they all thought was the best ideas and suggestion. Plans were being made, but with difficulties. But what was any kind of plan, when they didn't know what they were up against, or what they were planning against? Hope was fading, but the strong men of the village had to remain courageous, to give hope to the villagers. Until a voice cut through everything. Move. The crowd turned. And time stopped. Mama Chitty walked forward. And behind her, Chioma, alive with a humble smile. The joy was explosive as men and women jumped with excitement. Some of them were bewildered, curious, and wondering what had happened. But one face turned pale. One face turned confused and scared, and most obvious, nervous. It was the face of the stepmother. Her tears stopped instantly, and she looked searchingly and nervously around for what no one could tell. Her body had become stiffened in shock and fear of the truth. Her eyes widened, not with joy, but fear, as she stared stonily at Mama Chitty, who was about to talk to the people while still waiting for the excitement to settle for audience. It was very obvious in her eyes that she was resisting and rebuking Mama Chitty from saying whatever she had in mind to say. But of course, she was the spiritual Mama Chitty, the seer. And Mama Chitty saw it. "Shall I speak?" Mama Chitty said quietly without looking at anyone in particular. "Or will you confess and save yourself the consequences?" Silence fell as men and women looked questioningly at each other, not knowing whom to trust beside them. The silence was the kind that suffocates. And under its weight, the truth was warming to break free. "You know that I know the truth, and of course you can see Chioma, your victim, standing here beside me. So, you know that we know the truth. Will you confess now and receive mercy, or you want the truth to reveal itself?" Mama Chitty was still demanding when the stepmother fell to the ground in tears and confessed. Much to the shock of everyone around, and the village shook to its foundation of trust. The villagers raged. Not just because of her deception and wickedness, but also for her evil intentions, and more for Chioma. Young men lifted their machetes as they approached her. Chioma retreated to the consoling embrace of her mother. The cry of her stepmother eventually turned to a genuine cry, after receiving a few vicious knocks and kicks from the angry men and women. But after a moment and talking, Mama Chitty walked away, advising them to leave Chioma's father to handle his family matters the way he deemed fit. Some young men still wanted to take laws into their hands, but the elders talked them out of it. That night, the village spoke in hushed tones and expressed bitterness. Not just of betrayal, but of something deeper that troubles the mind, and the thinking minds couldn't stop wondering. Indeed, it was something terrifying. The forest had taken Chioma, but it did not keep her. The evil forest. Could it be the strong spiritual power of Mama Chitty that intervened? Or something else? Because even darkness has its own limits. Was the intervention a stronger darkness? Or something within that remained unnoticed? The forest did not reject her by chance. It rejected her, because even evil knew some souls are too pure to be owned. Everyone knew the virtuous grace of Chioma.